A few light-hearted hours, necessary relief from all the work. The Navy likes crossing the line, and not even the prospect of war could keep them from welcoming King Neptune, who, as usual, abused the hospitality. With so many men aboard, scant ceremony or time was wasted on individuals. The novices were captured, smeared with the most appallingly sticky concoction, and dunked into seawater by the hundred. After a safe interval, a few hours later, more sedate ceremony greeted the arrival of Rear Admiral Sandy Woodward. Hermes, now the flagship of the fleet, sailed the last few miles to At dawn. The Harriers demonstrated their skills and their weapons. A smoke target in the sea was bombed and rocketed. The escort group lined up with the carrier to watch. Flashing low past the bridge, the Harriers took aim on a flare in the sky. Their heat-seeking missiles arced across the sky, momentarily brightening the target as they hit. The Harrier pilots were enjoying themselves after 2 weeks' hard work, putting on a show for their audience. Until now, the ships have moved with the full backing of the country. What their officers fear most is a twilight period of waiting, with a loss of momentum and a possible trickling away of political support. The task force, with all its power, is ready. Britain has gathered its might. It must set its course.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of State for Defense has just come over to give me some very good news, and I think you'd like to have it at once.
The message we've got is that British troops landed on South Georgia this afternoon, shortly after 4 p.m. London time. They have now successfully taken control of Grytviken. At about 6 p.m. London time, the white flag was hoisted in Grytviken beside the Argentine flag, and shortly afterwards the Argentine forces there surrendered to British forces. The Argentine forces offered only limited resistance to the British troops. Our forces were landed by helicopter and were supported by a number of warships, together with a Royal Fleet auxiliary. During the first phase of this operation, our own helicopters engaged the Argentine submarine Santa Fe off South Georgia. This submarine was detected at first light and was engaged because it posed a threat to our men and to the British warships launching the landing. So far, no British casualties have been reported. At present, we have no information on the Argentine casualty position. The commander of the operation has sent the following message: "Be pleased to inform Her Majesty that the White Ensign flies alongside the Union Jack in South Georgia. God save the Queen."
What happens next, Mr. Knott?
Thank you very much.
Just
What's your reaction,
rejoice at that news and congratulate our forces and the Marines.
Are we going
Good
to
night,
declare war on
gentlemen.
Argentina, Mrs. Thatcher?
Rejoice.
Two women, joined by 3 scientists who trekked 15 miles from the British Antarctic Survey Base at Grytviken, spent many anxious moments wondering if they'd be spotted by Argentine aircraft or troops. But they stayed well away. The only surprise caller was a Royal Marine who knocked on the door one morning and said he'd been sent to protect them as the British were about to attempt to recapture South Georgia. He spent 3 days with them and, just in case, taught them how to use his 9mm Browning automatic. In all then, 3 weeks of watching, wandering and listening to the radio before the Black Wasp helicopter from the ice patrol ship Endurance flew in low from the sea to confirm it was all over. The Argentines had surrendered. Anxiety gave over to relief, and the helicopter pilot, Lieutenant Commander Tony Ellerbeck, might have been forgiven for thinking he'd done it all single-handed. They found the Union Jack and White Ensign flying over Grytviken harbour once again, with the destroyer HMS Antrim riding easy at anchor. Twin symbols of the re-establishment of British sovereignty over the island. Nearby, the wreck of the Argentine submarine Santa Fe, holed as she headed for the whaling station jetty. Other holes in her superstructure, evidence of the missile and small arms attack which eventually sank her, and of one shell which apparently went right through the conning tower without exploding. On a hillside, the wreck of the Argentine helicopter shot down by Lieutenant Keith Mills' brave band of Marines when the Argentines invaded. 3 died in the crash. And in Grytviken itself, sporadic bullet holes and shattered windows, relics of the small arms fire as the British moved back in. The Marines were now fully in control of a harbour recaptured without any of the large-scale destruction which many had thought possible. Some got ready to take in more supplies at one of the jetties, while others checked their equipment. Hard men, still relaxed enough to ham it up for the camera. And then a goodbye wave from the team that retook South Georgia, as Cindy and Annie set out to join a convoy for the long voyage to Ascension Island. They were refueled on the way from an accompanying tanker, which also carried some of the Argentine prisoners of war. Armed soldiers kept watch over them as they exercised on the helicopter flight deck, proving that Britain had taken time out to think of their physical fitness. Or perhaps everyone exercises like this if someone's pointing a gun at them. At any rate, for Cindy and Annie, an adventure even more remarkable than planned was nearly over.
Mr. Tony Benn.
The Prime Minister aware that although the House and the country are united in condemning the aggression, public opinion, as far as it can be ascertained by a majority, favours a much more serious attempt at negotiation through the United Nations than has occurred, and that a majority of people would not follow the government into a war with the Argentine, which would threaten the loss of many lives, including servicemen and Falkland Islanders, might spread the conflict and would isolate this country. And that if the Prime Minister continues to underrate the importance of negotiation and proceed with the war, the responsibility for the loss of life will rest upon her shoulders.
Nonsense, absolute rubbish.
Mr. Speaker, there is no lack of vigour or will to pursue negotiations on the part of Her Majesty's government. The lack is on the part of the Argentinian government to obey the Security Council resolution. And in the meantime, perhaps the right honourable gentleman will remember that our people are under the heel of the Argentinian invader.
Britain and Argentina have had several hours now to send their forces into action. Each side is within striking distance of the other, each inside the 200-mile zone around the Falkland Islands that both have declared off limits. But no military action has been taken. There has, however, been a major move by the United States, an official declaration of support for Britain, and a decision in London to send the Foreign Secretary back to Washington and to the UN that keeps alive the possibility of a settlement without war.
Nothing has happened this afternoon to persuade top U.S. officials to alter Secretary Haig's ominous midday prediction.
The South Atlantic crisis is about to enter a new and dangerous phase in which large-scale military action is likely.
That was how Haig set the scene for the announcement that the U.S. had ended its diplomatic effort and was now shifting its support behind Britain. Haig squarely blamed Argentina for the breakdown.
In light of Argentina's failure to accept a compromise, we must take concrete steps to underscore that the United States cannot and will not condone the use of unlawful force to resolve disputes.
The steps the U.S. will take against Argentina are as follows. In the military area, the suspension of all exports and withholding of the presidential certification that Argentina has improved its human rights, thereby making it eligible for future military sales. The effect limited because Argentina has been effectively cut off since '78. In the economic area, the suspension of new export-import bank credits and the suspension of Commodity Credits Corporation guarantees. The effect important, but significantly less than the full trade sanctions imposed by the Europeans. However, top officials here say the main point of these sanctions is to send a political signal. Up in New York, Foreign Minister Costa Mendez got the message, but it was clear that Argentina's position was unchanged.
Any negotiation should take as the principal base, even as the only base if you want, but as a principal base, the Argentine sovereignty on the islands. This is non-negotiable.
If sovereignty is non-negotiable, then there is nothing to negotiate.